I'm Van Sebastian, here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins for this week's Written on the Edge, Season 10, Episode 9 interview. We'll be talking with Donna Minkowitz and discussing her novel, Donnaville. So let's get to know our guest. Donna Minkowitz is a writer of fantasy, memoir, and journalism, lauded by Lilith Magazine for her fierce imagination and compelling prose. Science fiction great Terry Bisson called her writing rich and wild, dark and funny, and fearless as her legendary journalism and scary as a fairy tale. And she's proud that Kirkus has praised the defiant and playful energy of her work. Donna, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here.
We're glad you made it. So, where did the passion to write come from? Because you've obviously been in several different genres and parts of the writing world, but where did that passion start?
I think it probably started from defiance, like with a lot of queer writers.
Nice.
Um, I think I started to write around fifth or sixth grade, and I lived in a violent household,
Oh no.
and reading and writing really felt like it helped me get out, get out in my mind and find another place and be free and the beauty of writing. And so defiance has always felt like a big part of my writing. And I think that's one reason why I've wanted to do a lot of genres, kind of like I I don't have to be confined to just one genre. I want to do them
Hmm.
all.
So, you've got journalism under your belt, you've got memoirs under your belt. Is Donnaville your first fiction?
It is my first fiction. My last memoir, Growing Up Golem, had a lot of fictional pieces to it. So it was a memoir. It was a memoir of my life, written in my 40s after I'd had a kind of a significant and disabling arm injury from using the computer so much as a journalist. But it was written with the fantasy element that instead of giving birth to me, my mother had created me through traditional Jewish magic as her own personal golem.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
Because my mother told us all as kids that she knew how to do and she had the power to do traditional Jewish magic. And because my mother was a very domineering kind of personage, we all believed her. So in the book, I'm kind of this artificial person trying to go through life, becoming a queer journalist at the Village Voice, but, feeling insufficient as a human, as, unfortunately, I think a lot of queer people do. Um, so, anyway, the book is about trying to bust through that origin. But Donnaville is my first, uh, straight up, hey, let's write a novel.
Nice. So if I were to see you at like a book fair or a signing or something, and I saw that beautiful cover, if you want to show it off to people, and I look at that and I say, "Oh my God, what's this about?" What would you tell me? What would be your elevator pitch?
I would tell you that Donnaville uh, is about the struggle for liberation within one person's mind. So it's set in the city of my mind. My name is Donna,
Hmm.
and it's called Donnaville. And the city at the start of the novel uh, is really a very oppressed place. It's a self-oppressed place, actually. It's dominated by a central prison that everyone's afraid to talk about. There are no real government services being done. Kind of like what we're facing right now with this administration. And but there are people in Donnaville who want to liberate the place, and especially there's a kind of the most important prisoner in the book is an 8-year-old child who is stuck supposedly for her own protection in the inmost room. So different forces scheme, to free this child and to free the whole place. So it's basically a novel about an internal battle to be free. And there's lots of sex, there's all different kinds of genders and sexualities. And because it is fantasy, it's in my mind, so it doesn't have to conform to any specific reality. There are things like flying horses and sexy flying llamas and, people who can become invisible.
Nice. So in my preparation for this, it looked like all the central characters were all elements of personality.
Yes, except for one or two. So there are a couple of characters from the outside. Well, two of them represent the love interest. There's my actual wife, who's called E in the book. So, Donna, am also a character in the book, and I and some of the other, characters within me interact with her. Like unfortunately the jailer, because we're not always very nice to our partners. Um, so there's my wife, and there's also a love interest character within the book, a gay man named Hylas, who is a tourist vacationing in Donnaville. So the tourists are not parts of me; they're people from the outside because
Hmm.
Donnaville is a tourist town, and he is the love interest for a major character called the Harlequin, um, who it was a lot of fun to inhabit. The Harlequin is a sexy gay male trickster figure who has a lot of special powers. I have often thought about the gay man inside me,
Hmm.
and it really was a pleasure to put him on paper. He's very femmy, very sexual, uh, very arch, and unfortunately, not always very nice. He's kind of full of himself and tries to get over on people too. But he has a good side.
Nice. So I have to ask because of my background studies, are you familiar with Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Masks or Mask?
Absolutely. And
Okay,
that
this was starting
that
to.
has actually guided all my three books. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Please go on, or I
Uh,
can talk about it.
well, so I was going to say then, as you were envisioning writing this and you were inviting people to town, the tourists that came to town, were you specifically plotting out which masks you were going to show the tourist, or did they just sort of speak to you and pop up and say, "Haha, I'm here"?
Um, a little bit of both.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I always have Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces in my mind. Well, when I'm writing a book, um, I love the hero's journey. I
Hmm.
know a lot of people are not so fond of it these days, but there's all kinds of ways to modify it,
Right.
and to modify it to modify it to work for women. Um, and to me, um, it's just about telling a story about growth and change of a character. And all the major characters in Donnaville change, and grow. The jailer as well. So the major characters are the jailer, who's this really kind of poor, nebbishy guy who um, the only reason he's the jailer, and he's the major torturer in the city,
Okay.
um, is he thinks it's his duty. He thinks it's his way of taking care of everybody, and he thinks he has to. And honestly, he's in pain all the time, and torturing people is the only little bit of enjoyment he gets.
Hmm.
But he does grow and change in the book, and I found I became quite fond of him. Um, then there's the Harlequin, who also who goes through a hero's journey and grows. He develops this romance with the tourist named Hylas,
Hmm.
and it becomes different from his other romances. the Harlequin thinks he's very free um, because he feels so free sexually, but he really has been afraid of emotional connection, and he confronts that in the book. Then there's the little girl in the prison uh, who does find her way out of the prison at some point and goes on a journey of her own, and she's another major character. And then there's another character who uh, kind of is both part of me and also outside me, who's called the Divine Mother.
I was going to ask about her.
Yes. So she is, I say that she's the goddess or a goddess. She also encompasses the good aspects of my own actual mother, of whom there were also, of course, bad aspects. Um, but in my spiritual feelings, I believe that holiness and divinity exist within us as well as without us. And a lot of the story of the book is about the other characters at Donnaville trying to find a way to hear the Divine Mother when they've been so frightened because they feel they've been betrayed by her before, and to get her to actually, take care of Donnaville and do some good in there. But the Divine Mother also goes on a journey of her own. She, I mean, this is kind of my view of divinity. She's kind of goofy. She is basically good, but she is not perfect. She's not ethically perfect, and she's also not all powerful, even though she is very powerful. Because
Mhm.
I couldn't wrap my mind around a God who is all powerful and all good, and we have the world that we do.
Right.
So she's a different kind of God. And she does make mistakes, and she does sometimes hurt people. And so she goes on a journey of her own in the book to rectify that. And you're asking me about Joseph Campbell. Mythology is very much a part of the book. I mean, there's a lot of mythological elements behind the Divine Mother, and
Mhm.
also the way that Donna in the book in the beginning protects herself against the Divine Mother. She puts wax in her ears so she won't hear the Divine Mother's voice, like Odysseus in the
Yep.
Odyssey, trying to protect himself from hearing the voice of the sirens as he's
Mhm.
going by them. Because they're these female monsters who sing with these incredibly beautiful voices, but and make you want to dive into the sea to to be with them. But if you do that, they'll rip you to pieces.
I thought he was the one who listened but had his sailors tie him to the
Oh,
mast.
you know what? You're absolutely right. He put the wax in his ears, and everyone else's, I think. But at
Yep.
a certain point, oh no, you're right. You 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 you're right on that. He had the sailors tie him up
So he could
and tell
hear it but not dive into the
he could
sea.
hear it but not dive into the sea. Yes, yes, that's right.
Hmm. But the your comment still applies because all the sailors had their ears plugged.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And Odysseus tied himself up
Yep.
so um, so he wouldn't be completely taken with their song.
That book sounds very deep, but also very fun and sort of enlightening. Bez, do you have questions?
Well, the thing I'm kind of confused on from a conceptual level, because when you first started talking about it, I was thinking of something like magical surrealism, where a bit of it is in the mind and not necessarily present. Something along the lines of like Jojo Rabbit, where the little boy is the one, yet you're seeing him talking with his friend Hitler, as an 11-year-old Nazi child is, envisioning this, or in Amelie, where there's that romantic magical element that happens, but you don't quite know if it's real or if it's imagined. So what I'm trying to glean from what you're talking about here is it full on like fairy tale ish, or is it more of that what goes on in the main character's head is manifested, but it's not real?
Um, I would say it's a little bit of both, although predominantly what you say as the full-on fairy tale. Um, we are in this world, and um, you know, there is palpable suffering from some of the characters. The little girl really is in the prison, and you know, uh, the only human contact she has is this guy who just comes in and sometimes leaves her some bad food and hits her, who's the jailer. Yet, she in a way she loves him and considers him her daddy because, he's the only human being she's in contact with at all. And he does take care of her in a way. Um, and there are other prisoners, and other people suffering in the book. And it's not presented as an allegory. Um, and yet, from time to time, you know, uh, we're presented with Donna's outer life. So, like, oh, hey, like while all this is going on with these characters, here I am in Beacon. I'm sitting at a picnic table eating a sandwich and trying to ignore, you know, all these other things inside me that are going on. So, like, ostensibly, sometimes in the book,
So
I'm
is Donnaville
having
like internal, or is it a place?
it's both. I mean, it's definitely
Okay, okay,
internal. It's the city of my mind,
okay.
but it is presented as a place. This is the fantasy world. Um, and to that end, I was very lucky that I don't know if you can see the map that well from the cover, but we had a map maker named Brendan Lorber who draws literary maps, um, draw this map of Donnaville, which just gonna look at it. It has things like um, the graffiti queer bar, and it has a tent city of the unhoused. But it has a very nice residential neighborhood. It also has a lot of slums. So it's a very mixed place. There's a lot of natural beauty, mountains and a river, but there's also factories that pollute and are allowed to pollute. So I guess I would say it's presented as a real fantasy place, but every once in a while, I remind the reader that, oh, well, this is me, this is in my mind, and what's happening in the novel does have a real application to my life and my relationships, and in particular. Um, but on another level, I have my life, and I'm trying to ignore, this very punitive atmosphere inside me.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I was just trying to, I mean, that brought it into focus now. So I kind of understand what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Jojo Rabbit, but that's one of the things that they use as an element is that this little boy who's supposed to be a Hitler youth, his best friend is Hitler, a version of Hitler that he's imagined. And then through the course of the film, he begins to realize, hey, that's not my best friend. I need to get rid of this Joker, and so there's an evolution that occurs in this magical secret friend he has that isn't quite a friend, and it's his involvement as a character and growing up and realizing everything around him is really pretty bad, and so I was kind of trying to see if it was along those lines, and it sounds a bit like it is because there's an evolution that occurs because of all these circumstances that are happening.
Ab- Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Sidebar.
Yeah.
I'm Gonna pour myself some seltzer. Don't want to have the intrusion of, what's that weird bubbling? Yeah, I'm just gonna take some seltzer. Oh, my nose. Okay. So that movie sounds amazing. I have not seen it,
It's phenomenal. It's
but I
phenomenal.
really want to see it. But yes, and in a way, the greatest evolution that takes place is in the relationship between me and my wife. Because I'm operating from a very punitive framework, and a framework that is kind of in its origins afraid of love, naturally this comes out in how I relate to my wife. I mean, even though I love her and we've been together a really long time, but in the book, what happens and what the other characters do, and with respect to the prison, uh, does change how I'm able to be with my wife, and yeah, it makes our relationship grow.
So,
Okay. I
I
highly
know.
recommend you do watch Jojo Rabbit.
I
Some of the
want to see
best,
it.
one of the
Totally.
best films on the whole Nazi Jewish perspective. It's really,
Hmm.
really good.
Wow.
And we should probably let people know that they can buy a signed copy of that map to go with their book from your website, right?
Cool.
Actually, from my publisher's
Oh,
website,
sorry.
dylanbooks.com. Yes, it's a beautiful map, and the artist Brendan Lorber has drawn literary maps and fantasy maps for all kinds of enterprises. He's the best.
Perfect.
I love that.
So, is there anything about Donnaville that you want folks to know that we didn't think to ask?
Well, um, since Baz is mentioning Nazis,
Uh-oh.
um, I was going to say that during the first Trump administration, this does connect to my book.
Mhm.
During the first Trump administration, I went undercover a couple of times as a journalist to write about um, American Nazis and white
Hmm.
supremacists, um, which I found fun, although scary and probably often reckless. But there are some Nazis in my book who crop up. Um, uh, because maybe like with a lot of people, there are some Nazis in my mind. Um, they they are not my friends in the book. They're definitely the enemy, but they exist. They want the place to be even more punitive and even more nasty than than under the jailer's control. Um, and the other characters in the book, uh, have to go to some great lengths to fight them, because at a certain point they just start goose stepping down the street and killing people. So I wanted to share that.
Wow.
And child, that ain't far off. Okay. I'm just,
Oh,
Mhm,
as
mhm.
sad as that statement is,
No, totally.
and I think also as queer people, and not only from your Jewish background, but as queer people, I think we're being tested again. Can
Yes,
we
we are.
face this as a community and be as resilient and as innovative that our ancestors were, who had to fight this stuff? And I think we're having to step up into this area and really prove our worth, that we are resilient for a reason. We've existed throughout history because we're really good at this. And I hope that the queer children out there are
uh-oh.
understand now is the time for you to step up, because this stuff's real. As much as your book plays with the themes of that, but it is also very timely in that this is happening. This is what we're facing now. You know. maybe glitch.
Sidebar.
We have a lot of internal resources and internal community
So
resources.
sidebar, you paused right there, so you want to go back and do that thought over again?
Yeah, sure. Um, okay, good. Here, oh no, it's fine. Uh, okay. I'm so glad you said that. I think queer people do have a talent for fighting back. And we have a lot of internal resources and internal community resources for doing it. And one of them is our ability to access pleasure and fun and defiance and play. And, they are all things that I think American people in general are finding it hard to access right now. But I think we have something of a gift for that. So
Hmm.
maybe we can show the other folks how it's done.
Right, right.
Lead the way. Yep.
Yep.
All
We're
right.
also of a generation that we came up with fighting for our rights. So I mean, we're of that
Totally.
generation, and I think that's one of the gifts we can give back to the children is this is how we did it. This is how you can do it. And then if you apply all of your technical social media, you can take it to a level we couldn't back in the day because we didn't have that tech. So I think it's a great thing, and your book is brilliant in that it's timely in that manner, and it's kind of showing people, from what I'm gathering from you, it's showing people the complexity of life but also the resilience of life, and that's a very, very welcome message right now because it's getting so dark. So bravo to you for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Are you ready for our get to know you questions?
Oh, yes. I didn't know they were coming.
Take it away, Bess.
Okay, but before I do, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to everybody out there. If you like what we're doing here, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe down below. Let us know what you think about this. This is really the passion for Vance and I. We want to highlight content creators, just like the one we're interviewing today, that we want to make sure this is a repository of all their works that are for the community, by the community, and our allies. So if you like what we're doing, you can either go to patreon.com/podcast and actually make a monthly donation. Or we have reactions up there, and we're going to be new content going up there that is exclusive to Patreon, you can buy those individual items at a reduced price. So there's another way to help us out. Or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/podcast and just do a one-time donation. Just throw a few quarters our way. Every little bit helps because there are costs that are involved with this podcast, and we want to make sure that we keep bringing these wonderful, wonderful content creators to your attention. So when you make your next LGBT purchase in media, you know who to go search for. So with that said, let's get into our questions. All right. So can you name me a movie that was better than the book?
Oh, yeah. Primary Colors.
Oh, okay.
It's an oldish movie now from the 90s. It's kind of
Isn't that
about,
sad we say that when it's 90s?
oh, it's so sad. I know, I know. It was about the complexity and weirdness that was I mean, he still exists, but that was Bill Clinton as president.
Hmm.
And our community more than any other know how, I mean, he was very contradictory for us,
Yeah.
of course, with instituting Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Yeah, anyway, it's not, yes, that was better than the book.
Okay. Excellent. Well,
Mostly,
mhm.
I prefer the book, and if I really like the book, I am utterly unwilling to see the movie. Like, frankly, Lord of the Rings. I I love Lord of the Rings. I'm the only person who walked out of the first movie
Wow.
because it dared to do all these things that were so completely not the book.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, which fictional character would you most like to be friends with?
In in all of fiction.
All of.
Ooh. Um, I am wanting to say the narrator in Proust,
Mm.
in Search of Lost Time. I like that narrator.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Well, what's the most fascinating fact that you know?
Ooh. All right. Maybe this jibes with our stupid president's misunderstanding of transgenic mice,
Oh
but
God.
back back in the back in the 80s, when I was a teenager, the early 80s, I read a scientific article that said that scientists had successfully put mouse fetuses inside the bodies of male mice, and that those male mice were able to nurture those fetuses um, as if they had been female. So those male mice, were able to grow those fetuses to term and feed them. And then, I guess they surgically removed them and they were born and they were healthy mice babies. So, yay for male mice getting pregnant.
They joined their seahorse brethren.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
All right. Well, what was your favorite subject in school?
English and Latin and Greek.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that combination. All right. Before making a telephone call, do you rehearse what you're going to say?
Do I rehearse? Um, Only if I'm calling a member of Congress.
Which
Point
you
taken.
have done. That's how I knew about the mountains in your background.
Yeah.
Oh,
Point taken.
yes, yes.
All right. Well, what current event or causes are you most passionate about?
Um, I am most passionate about rolling back whatever this attempted
Hmm.
fascism coup is that's going on from
The orange
Donald
Adderall
Trump
ape.
and yes, Elon Musk from the malevolent moron. Yes, I think that's most crucial at the moment. And also defending trans people um,
Hmm.
from all these ridiculous and immoral assaults on them, that some
And it's
Democratic
such a minuscule part of
politicians,
our society. That's the
yes,
thing that gets you're after the tiniest fragment of human society. Leave them the fuck alone.
leave
I'm
leave
just
them the fuck alone. And Gavin Newsom will never get my vote for anything because he just went after trans women athletes.
yeah, I do get that, and I saw that, but I saw someone who saw it in a slightly different light, and I hadn't
Mhm.
considered it. He was they Their position was he didn't really comply with it, or but what he did is he gave it a point so that it drove it home of what the message that Charlie Kirk was pushing. And I thought that was an interesting take on it. And the thing is, I know Gavin Newsom, and I've met him a couple of times. He is a very personable. He's a brilliant politician, and I don't think he would make this kind of mistake, especially as a boy growing up in San Francisco. I don't know
Hmm.
that he would make this mistake outwardly. So I'm on the fence about how to read it. I'd like him to explain it further, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying on that.
Well, I hear you. I mean, I have not listened to his podcast directly. I I just, saw it written
There's
about.
a queer
So
guy.
it's
There's a guy that's our age called Political Punk. You should check out his channel. There is where he does a little breakdown of what his takeaway was from that exchange on trans people with Gavin Newsom and Charlie Kirk, and it's rather interesting.
I will check
That
it
I
out.
had not considered. Yeah, so definitely check that out. All right. Well, moving on. If you could visit anywhere in the world, where would that be?
Iceland.
Oh,
Um,
excellent choice.
I love the idea of Iceland. The people seem smart, and also they believe in elves.
Hmm.
Many of them really believe in elves. So I'm I'm very excited to go there. My wife thinks I should try to do a journalistic piece where I interview an elf. So that would be great.
Awesome.
Oh, totally, totally. Okay, I'm down with that. Okay, who, if anyone, was your first celebrity crush?
Ooh, Glenda Jackson.
Ah,
Glenda
okay,
Jackson.
okay.
Okay, but I have to say at the same time, I don't remember the name of the actress, but Magenta from the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh.
Oh,
God. I know yeah, I'll put it up here. Yeah, I
yeah.
know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh my God, Magenta. Here I am. How old was I? I was no 13. I was 13, and just maybe that was some of the first glimmerings I had of being attracted to women. It's like, ooh,
Yeah,
wow,
she could definitely do
she
it.
makes me feel this certain way. Wow. So yeah, Magenta, absolutely.
Okay, we'll go with that. All right. Well, finally, what's your personal favorite recipe that you make, and are you willing to share it with us?
Ooh, what is my favorite? Mm. Mm. Well, I would have to say it's a kind of Arab style cauliflower where you roast the cauliflower first
Okay.
under high heat. Then you saute it for a very long time with lots of spices and herbs, the more the merrier, but in particular, red chili flakes, a lot of balsamic vinegar. You put in some pomegranate molasses, so it's sweet, and you
Wow.
cook the shit out of it for a very long time until it becomes really complex. A lot of these delicious roasty flavors, but also a little bit sweet.
Does the roasting first prevent it from getting mushy?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
And it also, I hate undercooked cauliflower. It just doesn't taste like much, but the roasting plus sautéing like really makes sure it takes
Really
on
elevates
a
it.
lot of
Yeah.
good flavor.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I find it's the same way with Brussels sprouts, by the way. That's a
Oh,
great way to serve them is to
oh,
roast and then saute them. My
interesting.
daughter does it in a honey and mustard
Mm,
sauce. It's really wonderful, and it just elevates the whole thing. Amazing. You're like, oh my god, this is the best vegetable on the planet.
honey and mustard.
Yeah,
I have to try that.
I'll find the recipe from her and I'll forward it along. You got to try it.
Uh-huh.
It's really really good. If you want to vary your Brussels sprout intake, it's a good
Mm-hmm.
one to go.
You made it
All
through the
right. Well, you made
list.
it through the list. Bravo.
Woohoo!
So, what have you got coming up next? Another book, an interview with elves? What are you working on?
Well, I am focusing on my Substack right now.
Ooh, nice.
I have a Substack called Rough Tongue, which is currently described as urgent, tender, personal, left-wing essays. I think that's what I'm calling them. There's also sometimes some cooking in there, but there are a lot personal essays. One is about my complicated class background. Grew up on welfare and food stamps, but then inherited some money from my grandparents. Like, what is that? What class am I? But recently, a lot about, living under this current government and how to react and respond to it and stay sane. And I'm not sure when the podcast is coming out, but at the end of March, I will be at the Saints and Sinners Festival, which is
Nice.
a great
Wonderful.
LGBTQ writing conference in New Orleans.
Perfect. Love that. So, if people want to follow what you're working on, can they get to the Substack from your website?
Yes, they can.
DonnaMinkowitz.com.
DonnaMinkowitz.com.
Perfect. And you're also active on Instagram, correct?
Yes, I am at Donna Minkowitz.
Perfect. All right. Do you have any final words of wisdom?
No, I am so glad.
She's all,
you guys
I'm
are
all
doing
wisdom
this.
now.
Oh, Yes. No, I am delighted that you two are out there, discussing the art of queer writing and the politics of it all, and relating it to Joseph Campbell. So yay for that.
What can I say? I'm a nerd. All right, we would like to extend a huge thank you to Donna Minkowitz for joining us. Donna, thank you so very much.
I have really enjoyed it.
Good. We at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. So if you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Follow us on YouTube. We're doing all kinds of wonderful stuff over there. This show was produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye-bye.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.